Hi everyone. Welcome to Artist Project and to our art chat this evening. I just wanted to let you know that one of our speakers is stuck in traffic. He's on his way here. So Taiga is going to be starting the conversation and Devan will be joining us shortly. I also want to take the time to acknowledge that we are gathered on land, which is the traditional territories of the Haudenosaunee, Huron-Wendat, Anishinaabe, and Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nation. Today, Toronto is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful for the opportunity to live, work, and create here. We are very lucky to have two gallery directors with us this afternoon, Taiga Lipson of Olga Korper Gallery and Devan Patel of Patel Gallery, who is on his way here. They are both going to share their wisdom on the experience of collecting art, from things to think about when considering a purchase to curating your personal collection. Please welcome Taiga.
Thank you. I'm going to get started because poor Devan is stuck in traffic. I want to explain why the two of us are doing this talk together. How's my volume? Okay. Devan and I are both gallery directors. We've been in the business for at least a decade each and have known each other all that time. And the reason we wanted to do this together is because we have both collected from each other. And we thought that it would be really great to be able to speak not just as art dealers from the gallery side, but as collectors, as people passionate about the arts, as people interested in collecting for ourselves, why we do it, how we do it, and what led us to make those decisions. So I want to start with a story about Devan, because he's not here to defend himself while I talk about him. Devan represents an artist called Sarah Litovsky, who you should know. If you don't, look her up. She's great. And she is a portrait artist whom I've admired for many years. And I kept seeing her work. I would see it at art fairs. I would see it at the Drake. I would see it in restaurants. I would see it at the AGO. And I kept going, man, she's really good. And that's the first thing that I'll say as a collector that gets me, is that moment when something starts to get under my skin, similar to a movie director, you want to see all their films, or a restaurant owner and you keep wanting to go to every restaurant they open up. There's something that gets you, that makes you feel something, that makes you ask questions. And so many years ago, I started to make Devan really upset, because I would say, like, hey, that new painting by Sarah Litovsky, is it available? And he'd say, yeah. And I'd say, how much is it? And he would tell me, and I'd go like, I can't do that. And then 6 months later, I would see it again, a new one, somewhere else, and go like, Devan, is that available? And he'd go like, yeah. And I'd say, how much is it? And he'd go, like whatever it was at the time. And I go like, oh, I can't afford it yet. And the problem is that when an artist is prolific and they're really good and they're represented by a good gallery, the prices continue to go up. And so I was chasing Sarah Litovsky's career, always kind of a step behind. And finally, he posted a photo and my heart stopped. And it was one of those moments where I have been looking at her work for so long that I saw this and thought, like, if I don't get this, I am going to regret it forever. And so I wrote Devan, and I said, Devan, is this available? And he goes like, yes, and it was so much more than the first time I had asked him if a painting was available. And so I did the thing that I need every new collector to know is possible. And I asked for a payment plan. This is amazing. This is like gallery Visa. Everyone does it. We all do it. I do it. Every gallery in the city will do it, because we understand that art is a lot of money. And you're probably doing it because you love it so much. And so Devan very kindly let me take a year to pay off a painting that I had been looking for 6 years. And that is a great vignette of his character, his patience, his understanding as a dealer, that sometimes your client just needs to keep coming back. And it's a great testament to wonderful art that sometimes as a collector, it's worth taking your time, getting to know an artist, looking into their history. What is their background? Where have they shown? What do they make? And finally, where does it fit for you in your house, in your heart, in your collection? What does that involve? So that's just, I guess, my opener. And now I'd like to start with, how do you start? I mean, you're already here. So actually, every single one of you has already started, even if you haven't purchased a single piece yet. Just by being in this room, you have taken step one. The most important thing that you can do to start collecting is go outside. Go to the galleries, go to the fairs. They're accessible for you. In this one room, you have 300 plus artists, different styles, different media, different sizes, all available. And it's similar to if you're overwhelmed and you feel insecure and you don't know. I mean, you don't know what you don't know. It's a lot like a huge menu in a restaurant. And you're not really sure what you're going to eat, but eventually you pick something you like. Choosing art, starting with collecting art, is similar. You walk through this room, something is going to be your taste. And the more you see, the more you get to refine what your personal taste is. So you'll know if you're attracted to landscape. You'll know if you prefer photography over painting. You'll know if you like tons of color or none at all. I know collectors who are very particular, collectors who only pick red. I don't know why, but it's what speaks to them. And what's important is the more you see, the more you go look, the more you speak, the more you learn, the more you'll know. And better yet, the more you will feel confidence in approaching galleries, in knowing what you love, in knowing what speaks to you, and being able to collect for your home, for your business, for whatever you're looking for. I love this fair. I have been coming to this fair for many years. I love seeing what people can create. I love the broad spectrum of work that I won't see if I go to one particular gallery. It gives me the chance to broaden my knowledge, to speak to artists one-on-one, to see what they're working on. And I think that's also important if you're starting to collect, to have the chance to talk to an artist and ask them questions. And it's a bit nerve-wracking because even as a dealer who deals with artists on a regular basis, I find it a little, sometimes shameful to go up to them and say, like, so what are you doing here? But the thing is, this is their passion. It's their heart and soul. They want to be able to talk to you about it. They want to explain where they've come from and what their process is and what their history is and why they're doing this. Because art is really hard. And to put your creative vulnerability on the line for a bunch of strangers is, I think, maybe like the number one in difficult things to do. I certainly couldn't do it. So going to talk to them, just saying hi, just saying like, hey, I like this. Even if you don't know why you like it yet, it's okay to say that and to ask questions that you think are maybe stupid because they so want to hear it. When I'm doing art fairs for my gallery, all I want to do is talk to people. It's great. I think that the best questions I ever get are, like, how do I start? Where do I start? Come into the gallery. Go to any gallery. Toronto has amazing galleries. There are so many. We represent a broad spectrum of artists, Canadian, American, European, all over the world. We want to talk to you. We love what we do. We want to answer your questions. All I want is for new collectors to connect with something that I have. And that's what it's all about, is building these amazing, visceral, psychological, emotional responses to what's on the wall, or the floor, or the ceiling, depending on who you're dealing with. So, how would I get started? How did I get started? I got started collecting because I was raised in the art world. And so that's actually kind of a cheat, because I grew up in a space where things are scary and intimidating, and I got to learn about it when I was very small, unlike many of you who are starting off as adults. And all I can say to that effect is that it has made me want to spend my life, my career, encouraging people to become comfortable and friendly with the art that they choose. That this is supposed to touch the deepest part of you. And buying for love is wonderful. Buying for investment is also very good. I would recommend it. A friend of mine says that you should have 2 pieces in your collection that are specifically for investment. And how do you buy for investment? My best recommendation would be track your artists. Oh, Devan's here. Track your artists. See where they learned, where they studied, where they've shown, where they've been collected. Are they in museums? Have they had gallery representation? How long is their resume? And often, hey buddy, often this will help to guide you, but having reputable dealers like Devan, who have a long history of experience in picking artists who have evolved and their prices have gone up over time. If you can track their history, their work throughout time, and see that they have consistently made work that has shown and sold and gone to good collections, you know likely that you're making a good investment. What do you think?
Totally. Is this, yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, sorry I'm late, everyone.
So I just told them about buying Lutovsky's from you and your incredible patience over years of struggle.
No, not at all, not at all.
And on starting to collect by looking around the fair and seeing what's available.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great place to start. I mean, informing your eye, I think, is the most important thing to kind of begin. So looking at as much art as possible, whether you like it or not. And, if you don't like it, then it's a great opportunity to examine kind of, what you don't like, and by contrast, what you do like, and those kinds of things as well. So, yeah.
I think you got to hold it like real close.
Is it too loud?
No, it's good. So I actually don't know how you started collecting. I know you're a dealer.
Yeah.
But how did you start collecting?
I started collecting like from a friend. One of my best friends growing up was an artist, and from a very young age, I would kind of watch him paint, and I saw work, and I was just like, I had to have it. So that was kind of where it started, and it's kind of gone from there too. Like, as a dealer now, when art is in my space, sometimes I just have to have it, and I know you know that feeling as well too. So it's hard sometimes to let things pass. Like, there is a kind of a level of like shared ownership, or the retention of that image that you want to experience over time, and a sense that it will develop, and as you grow, you'll kind of see more to that image as well.
Have you ever bought a piece that made you uncomfortable?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
This is a thing. It doesn't sound like a thing, but a number of times I have purchased pieces or seen clients purchase pieces that they don't automatically love, but that like needle them, that kind of make them feel uneasy. And I find that those have a kind of spectacular longevity.
Big time.
Right? You want to like study them,
Exactly.
live with them. And
Exactly.
as you change, as you grow, what you see in them also changes and grows.
Totally.
That's interesting.
Totally. And I think that's why I mentioned like looking at art that you don't like as well, and sometimes giving that work a little bit more time, because, you know, the images kind of unpack a little bit over time as well. And, you know, there'll be things that you're aware of first in terms of an image, and then, you know, as you become more familiar, then, you know, you'll notice other things as well. Definitely.
So when you're walking a client, let's say a fairly new client,
Uh-huh.
through their first collecting experience, they've come to you, who knows how, word of mouth, let's say, and you're just getting them started. What are a few things that you would suggest to them?
I mean, I would just begin by showing them a lot of work, to be totally frank with you. You know, gauging their response and just asking them to be aware of their response, and, you know, things that they like and don't like, and then, you know, revisiting things, you know, what stuck with them over time. But, you know, I think it really is about informing the eye. But, you know, a lot of my approach is pretty instinctual. So it's kind of like, you know, what you sense and what you feel and what you connect with, and, you know, the longevity connected to that. So that's kind of my approach. How would you do that, out of curiosity too?
I think you're pretty spot on. I mean, the
Yeah,
idea
yeah.
is like, look at things. My gallery sells a lot of conceptual art. So you walk in and you have no idea what's going on. And it really takes the patience and bravery to learn the story, the intention behind the artist's work. You have that immediate connection to an image, but it can have so many different layers underneath that you're not aware of yet. And that takes a lot of time as well.
Absolutely.
That can be really hard.
You have so many artists that are amazing like that, though, and you know, it's kind of like I think that type of work is what speaks to me as well. Like, you know, when the image, you know, says so much, but there's something, you know, that kind of prompts a different way of seeing it that's a little bit more insightful. You know, and kind of unveiling that narrative that is behind the work and behind the image. You know, kind of from where it came. You know, so I think that's interesting to kind of like, you know, try and tune your eye a little bit to seeing deeper as to what the artist's intent was, or even different ways that work can be interpreted, or, you know, the larger canon in which that work exists, like its kind of, you know, its relevance to contemporary art or contemporary life, or, you know, different things like that. Like now a lot of work, you know, has a political you know, kind of tone to it, and not that that's necessary or anything like that either, but, you know, it just is an opportunity to become more aware of different topics or different opinions that we have as well.
What a great point. What is your personal style? Did you see that question?
Personal style.
We got a handful of questions before the talk, and this one amazed me. What is your collecting style?
Collecting style. I don't know. I mean, I have a lot of work, and you know, some of it I bought from you, and, you know, I mean, again, because it's instinctual, there's a big kind of range of work, like, you know, so I don't know if I would say that there's a style, like, that's the fun part for me, is that, like, you know, I kind of, as you collect work, you kind of get to become, like, a bit more aware of your own taste. So it's like, you know, kind of, I like to be drawn to things, and then, like, you know, learn about why I was drawn to it and that kind of thing by owning the piece and letting that kind of open up. But
So as a collector, would you say that there is a checklist of items that you would have in your mind when you're when you're looking for a piece, or when you buy a piece, that you could run down?
I mean, yeah, I think so. Like, you know, it's like, you know, I mean, for me, you know, acquiring a piece that is, like, you know, top notch, like, of course, you know, in terms of, you know, the body of work and timing for the artist, and, you know, what series is the work from, and, you know, is it a transitionary piece that, you know, shows a development in the artist's voice, or, you know, those kind of different factors as to, you know, what it means in the bigger kind of picture of that artist's career and their, you know, kind of what they're what they're talking about.
Oh, so this is a great example of talking about that first Litovsky, that first painting, and how I had gone
It's a great
through
piece.
6 or 7 questions before I finally came to the one that I absolutely needed to own. So then I would say that once you spot an artist that you like,
Yes.
it's important in many ways to learn about them and ask questions, get involved, invest yourself in their work, and then when you finally find that one piece that you can't live without, you jump on it.
Yeah, big time, big time. And I think it's important to also like let your interest be known to a certain degree, you know, because you know, like access and availability is kind of like an important consideration. Like you might find an artist that you like, or you might see an image online, you know, of imagery that you like, but those pieces, you know, may not be available, or, you know, the access from which gallery or which approach. I mean, here, you know, it's directly with the artist, so it's a bit different, but, you know, I think it's important to kind of think about that. So if you let your interest be known, whether it's to the artist or to the gallery, you know, that you're interested and that you'd like to be kept, you know, abreast of other works that become available or things like that as well, then, you know, you kind of are able to have that opportunity to choose the piece that really is right for you. And, you know, I think that's really important. Like that's kind of what happened, you know, with us, and subsequently a few other Litovsky pieces too, right? So it's great.
Subsequently, many other works.
That's great, yeah.
But the same thing actually happened for you with me, is that you had known Kelly Mark's work for many years.
Exactly.
Had even, I think, like shown some of her works for many years, and finally saw something come through my gallery that he needed to have. And that was that.
Totally,
you know?
Totally.
When it's love, it's love.
Yeah, absolutely. I love those pieces. Yeah, and I mean, I think that's an interesting example too. I mean, you know, one of the Kelly Mark pieces I got from Olga Korper and from Taiga is a watch, and it's a really cool piece. And you know, I think that, like, you know, in this day and age too, there's a lot of different formats for work that you can collect. You know, there are a lot of artists that create like editions and prints and multiples and different things like that as well that you can engage with, that are, you know, at quite an accessible price point, or you can, you know, get works from more famous artists, you know, that are produced in multiples, and that can be a great way to experience the work. I mean, you know, of course it's a bit different because there are several of them that exist, and there's other considerations that go along with that, but you know, it can be a great option. So, you know, with Kelly Mark's work, you know, she is an artist that, you know, very famous, important Canadian artist, you know, that whose work I've admired for a long time. And, you know, some of the larger, you know, original works are maybe a bit out of my price range, but, you know, the multiples were an excellent option. So, you know, I think that's really important to consider, you know, in terms of collecting work, and you know, opportunities too. I mean, getting originals are phenomenal. You know, and something like the artist project where the artists are here and the work is here and it's primarily original work is a great opportunity too. Definitely. Do you collect a lot of multiples, or mostly originals and stuff? Or?
I started with collecting multiples.
Oh, nice.
I started my if I track the timeline of my collection, it starts with a 2x2 inch painting that I bought as a gift to myself after working my very first art fair more than 10 years ago. And then subsequently every piece gets a little bit larger, and like throw in an addition when it's something that I loved so much where I truly could not afford it.
Yeah, totally.
And, you know, up to things where it would have been an impossible purchase if I didn't spread it out over time, you know, like know that I had to work for it, and every extra dollar was just thrown down on top of it. I mean, like,
totally.
I've been paying you for 3 straight years, and every time I'm almost done, I find something else. And that's, I think, a thing about collecting is that collecting is addictive.
That's true.
It truly is, because the more you're involved in the art world, once you start, and then you go to just one more opening and one more fair and one more, and then, you know, every time I go, like, not this year. I'm done. I'm going to pay everything off. I won't owe anyone anything. And then I walk through Artist Project and buy something off the wall the first night because I'm so afraid it'll sell. I can't help myself. And it has to do with seeing these wonderful creative people do something so spectacular that I so cannot do. You know, like moms who would tell their kids when they're young, like, you sing beautifully, you're great. My mom from a young age was like, you can't draw. Don't try it. But collecting it is like, it's so wonderful. being able to live with that in your home, being able to support these artists in their career and track where they're going and see how they grow and how they evolve. And then when they get these new shows, like watching Sarah's career take off and seeing how far she's come feels very personal. It's you're so deeply connected to this thing that you're emotionally invested in, that you have put money and time into, that they become very much sort of like a member of your clan.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Well, I think, with that too, it's like, having a collection, you begin to see the different conversations between the different artists that you have and, different themes that emerge in terms of what's relevant to you and, what's relevant to those artists. Definitely. Yeah, for sure.
Would you say you have collectors? Like, could you give me a story about a collector that you have now, a client who, like, when something comes in, you can, like, call them up?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I think, you were kind of alluding to this, by jokingly saying that you've been paying me for 3 years. And, I kind of noticed that trend with some of my clients. So I do like a subscription-based thing with some clients where they pay like a monthly amount and we have like a set budget, for art. But, I started that with one client who, his tastes are so aligned with mine that it's like, really any piece that I consider buying, it's like I know that it's a strong consideration for them too. And there's kind of now like a group of people like that as well. So, that I think that's interesting. But I mean, it is kind of reflected, like every gallery that you go to or every dealer that you speak with, like they have kind of personal tastes and that's reflected in the roster of the artists and that kind of thing, which is really unique and special too, right? Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so let's just do a quick review of where we are so far. We talked about starting collecting, getting out, seeing the fairs, seeing the galleries, learning your tastes, learning about the artist's history once you do decide what you like, whatever that may be.
Totally.
Approaching dealers or artists, as the case may be here, asking for payment plans or subscriptions, which is genius. I'm going to employ that at the gallery. Collecting for love versus investment. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I sometimes have people ask me about that in terms of, art is an unregulated market. It's one of the few unregulated markets, and I my gallery is a little bit different than Taiga's because, I work with quite a few emerging artists and, your artists are a bit more established. And, with emerging artists, there is the kind of obvious concern as to, is that work going to continue to carry the value that someone paid for, and it's an important consideration, but I think, it is where people place a lot of trust in dealers too, and also doing research and having an understanding of that artist's trajectory and career, as to where things are going and pinpointing the right kind of timing, but where was your question starting? Just remind me again.
Love versus money.
Yeah, love versus money. Like, I mean, it has to be love. It has to be love. You can't. I mean to say that in terms of kind of the precariousness of, art investment at some level is that you have to buy the things that you love, like, kind of necessarily. But on the same token, I think in my experience, people that buy what they love, it's more likely that they will have work that increases in value, and they're buying for the right reasons, and they're developing a collection that is cohesive and strong. I'm sure that you would kind of echo that, right? Like,
yes.
There are people that do buy art, for investment, and I think, truthfully too, like any kind of blue chip investment, that becomes very expensive too. Like, you are dealing with significant, kind of blue chip works. If you are doing that, and it's a little bit different, and it's a bit of a different experience.
It's different than starting a collection.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Collecting don'ts.
Collecting don'ts.
Do you have a don't?
Well, I mean, if an artist has a gallery, don't try and go directly to the artist.
That's a great one. Don't go directly to the artist.
One,
It's not very nice. We work hard for them. Don't buy a piece just because it matches your couch.
That's a good don't as well. That's a good don't as well. If you want something that matches your couch, a good approach is to do a commission. where you can kind of have potentially some input in that respect and kind of, work with the artist and maintain that integrity. But
Yes.
that's a good don't, yeah.
Don't. This is what my boss and grandmother Olga Korper always says. Don't buy with your ears.
That's a good way to put it.
Just
yeah.
because you've heard something is a hit does not necessarily mean it's a hit, and certainly doesn't mean it's a hit for you. Go see if you connect with it in person. There's a lot of online collecting these days, and I would say that the only circumstance under which I have ever bought anything based on what I've seen online is if I have seen that artist's work in person so many times that I feel confident. I know what their brush strokes are like. I know if they're photographers, what their density and saturation is like. I know the quality of the work, so that if I see it online, I can go like, oh, that's a good piece. Which incidentally is how I bought that first Litovsky.
I was just thinking that. Yeah,
I had been looking at that work with Devan, without Devan, in restaurants, in galleries for so long that by the time I saw that image, I knew what it really was.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I think even the Kelly Mark work I bought from you was from an image as well, right? From a JPEG. So, I mean, it's definitely possible, but I'd seen a lot of Kelly Mark's work before. And I mean, it's interesting what you're saying about, don't buy just based on what you've heard. But, it's kind of a similar distinction between, like art as investment or buying what you love. Because a lot of people do like, this is hot, or everyone's talking about this artist, so let me get this artist. And, that's fine to a certain degree, but if people aren't experiencing the work and just kind of skipping that step, to the discussion about it and kind of the hype around it, it's, the art is kind of lost as a result of that, and people aren't actually experiencing it. So that's kind of first and foremost is, like what you connect with is always the most important.
Should we talk about having art, starting to collect, and like having it in your home and what you do with it?
Totally. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Sometimes I have collectors who, will buy a couple of pieces from me, and I'm like, oh, like I often offer, complimentary delivery and install for the work, and I'll end up at the home and none of the work is hung. Like they have a whole collection of pieces and none of it's hung yet. And it's amazing to me that it's but I get it too. It's these fragile, beautiful things, and it's that kind of step of putting them on the wall. But it makes a huge difference, and you can always engage galleries or art installer services for that kind of thing. But when you begin to have work on the wall, it's like then you start to respond to it. You start to learn more about your tastes. It will kind of guide you in terms of what you like about that piece and what you might like about other works as well. So, living with work is such a different experience, and a lot of people will cycle work through their home as well, and try it out in different places, and get different experiences from the work, and that kind of thing.
Actually, this is one of those amazing gallery freebies that most people don't know about. If you buy even the smallest thing and ask a dealer to come install it in your home, you can get basically free installation services for your entire house because we love it so much. We will come in there, and within 5 minutes we'll just go like, oh, but can I just move this here? And actually, I think for me, one of the problems is most people, because it's instinct, you want to hang things above where anyone can hurt them. But I walk into houses and it's as though like Hagrid has come in to install the artwork. You shouldn't have to be on tiptoes to touch it. It should be directly in front of you. And I can't help myself but start to like take things off the wall and redo them when I'm in there. I feel like that's guys, we'll do your houses for free. Like, just ask. You don't even need to buy anything. Just tell me that you need something installed. I'll come over. And while we're there, if you're starting collecting, the dealers will always be scanning. We'll get a sense of what furniture you have, of what lighting you have, of what art you've picked out for yourself. And we'll go like, oh.
The empty walls.
I understand the type of person you are. Let me show you blank. I think you'll really like it. And even if you don't.
I mean, doing house visits is a really great...
It's a great start
definitely.
To help you understand what you like and give you the chance to see more that maybe you didn't see when you were first in the room.
Yeah, and even share parts of your space or your own kind of, design sensibility, that might lend itself to the way that you want to collect work. Like, I think, again, too, where collecting can be an opportunity to kind of think about your own taste and learn a little bit more about what you like, and, kind of delve deeper into that. And, your space obviously reflects that, and whether that's like in an office or a home or, wherever that is, like, I think if you and even having other people come and give you feedback, whether it's a dealer or a friend or another artist or something like that, to give you input on pieces that you're considering, or having work in the space and stuff like that as well.
We've been going for 40 minutes. Are
No.
there any questions before we just bulldoze over you? Yeah. Oh, great.
Give you a mic.
So when you talk about investing for investing purposes, how do you exit an investment? Like, what does that look like? I have no idea how to sell anything. I don't own it.
I mean, there are kind of a few options, kind of traditionally. Any work that I sell, I always tell the client that if they do want to sell the work at some point, to come back to me. Like, I may want to buy the work directly, the gallery may want to buy the work directly, I may privately solicit the work for sale. A gallery will take a certain commission and typically arrange a certain price range that you will be comfortable with in terms of selling the piece. There are auctions. There aren't a lot of contemporary art auctions. The Waddington's has the concrete contemporary that Stephen Ranger does, and there are a few other auctions like that as well. So work can sometimes, the secondary market in Canada is still very much developing, and it's more developed in Europe and in the US and stuff like that as well. Secondary market meaning, like reselling work. So, it's a bit different. And, if you're doing that, you kind of have to, go with work that has a market and has a secondary market as well. And it's an important thing to be aware of that, if you are buying, emerging primary market work, there may not be at this time a secondary market, that work may not be as liquid as you think, and I think that's just kind of part of it. It is a little bit of a more long-term game in that respect. Do not.
It's absolutely a long-term game. There are also other things other than auction or resale, like donation. You can donate a work. If you're not going to put it in auction for whatever it may be, you can donate a work to an institution, which they are so happy to receive, for a tax receipt of the full value of the work. And that, in many cases, is a massive game changer for lots of collectors if they have bought a house, if they've gotten a raise, if they're looking to make a change. Donations for receipt can change everything. And it's a great way of being a patron of the arts by having your name as part of this donation to an institution. And I also think that it's a great way of putting something that you believe in and have invested in back into the art world to be seen by the public. And I really enjoy that. I feel like a lot of contemporary works, especially like what you're doing, they vanish into homes never to be seen again. So they can go from home to home to home for years, but hopefully at some point there is a museum donation that takes place so that they can be enjoyed by the public.
I'll just add as well that that's such a good point, because really, as a collector, that is, in a certain sense, one of the greatest contributions you can make, is to contribute a work to an institutional collection through donation, because it makes a really big difference for the artist as well and for their career, and it really marks an important point. So, I mean, it's a little bit different, in terms of beginning a collection, and, but that's often a kind of long-term outcome, as well. But maybe, do we have time for another question? Yeah, another question? Or any other questions?
Hi. First of all, this has been really enlightening. I had a question before. You mentioned that we should be asking questions before collecting. are there any specific questions that you have found to be useful, or if anyone here should be asking specifically?
Questions like, who is this artist? Where have they shown? Are they in any institutions, either museums, banks, universities? Have they gone into public collections, which is great for investment value? Is this piece an edition? An edition of how many? How many have been sold? Is it archivally sound? Will it survive decades? Things like if it's framed, or if you're having it framed, is it under UV glass? Frames are very important, people. They're so important. They keep your art safe. It's like back in the day when televisions used to be in cabinets. They're great. We want good glass. It doesn't matter if it costs you $100, spend $500 on good glass. Who are you buying it from? If you're buying it from the artist, I want a CV. If you're buying it from a dealer, what's up with the dealer? Do they have a good reputation? Do they have a good history? What pieces have they placed in what spaces? How long have they been working? You know, Devan is a great example of this. He has been successfully running a gallery for many years. He picks great artists with star names. They are skyrocketing in the emerging artist sphere. So he's already a safe bet. And people that he would bet on are also good bets. Things like that. If I'm buying a piece, I want to know, what have they done that looks like this? What have they done that I might like more? Are they working on anything right now that I might like to see before I spend however much money on this particular piece? Can I go to their studio? That's actually a great example because, I mean, currently we're kind of like seeing it, we're in it. This is a great example. Artist studio visits are awesome. I love them. You get to like take the back channel into what this person is doing, and maybe even though you have your heart set on one, then you look around and there's another one and it's awesome and you want that instead. Do you have any others?
I mean, in terms of questions too, just like really simple questions. Like if you're looking at a work and there's a part of it that you just don't get, just ask like, you know, what is that about? You know, or even ask like, what is the art about? You know, like why is this person, why is this a painting? You know, what is this painting about? Like really simple questions, you know, just so that you fully have a sense of what it is that you're buying. And I mean, you know, you'll be relayed a certain perspective, and you know, you'll have your own perspective as well. But I think, you know, you kind of form that from getting all that information. So I would just say that, you know, ask whichever questions, you know, that you feel that you need to become more comfortable, you know, and understand the work. And of course, all those logistical questions are really important too, you know, so the whole batch, totally. Does that wrap us up, or we more questions, or?
I have a question. Oh. I hear that you were asked to be on the artist project jury by someone that you may know, and that you were able to pre-screen and preview all the artists here at Artist Project. What works were you most excited to see in person, and what works have you discovered here at the fair?
Fantastic question, director of the fair. I was most excited to see work by Maureen O'Connor. She's a photographer that I'd seen before, and I knew she was doing new stuff. And that's like the dream, is I get to come here and see the new work that she's had that I know is going on. And I went straight to her booth. I was so thrilled. And I was surprised to discover work by Alex Garand. She's over there. And she is a portrait painter, which is like, I love that the way I love dairy. You know, it's just like a deep personal love. If grilled cheese is on the menu, I'm getting it. And I bought one of her portraits immediately within 5 seconds of seeing it. She's spectacular. And that's the case I find for so many artists here, is that they are extremely talented, and you get to showcase, what's new that I'm doing here, and I love that. So now that I know she exists, I'm going to continue to follow her career, and having bought one small painting, I may, in the next couple of years, buy bigger paintings. And that is how you buy the loyalty of a collector. How about you?
During the jury process, this is terrible. I just remember his Instagram handle, Joshua ha ha ha. I don't know if you remember anyways, his work is here, and I'm really excited to see that in person. I was a bit late, so I haven't actually gone around and seen the fair yet, so I can't say what has surprised me, but I'm very excited to see his work and lots of the other artists as well. But thanks, Emily, for the question. And thanks everyone for listening to us, and sorry I was late.
Yeah, thank you very much.